So once I realized that, hey, Justice, it's okay if you understand the basics, understand them well, then you can add on to stuff. Hi everybody, welcome to Married in, wait, what is our channel called? It's like, I know what our channel is called. It's called Married in Medicine. And obviously, we haven't been up here in a while. Hair looks crazy. We haven't been up here in a while, and that's just because, medical school was crazy. And what I thought I would have time for, I didn't. Like once we finished our first year, I took the summer off. Anthony didn't. He decided to do a internship, and so I had planned and mapped out everything. But man, y'all, second year is completely different from first year, and so I will get into that a little later in the video. But what I will say is that I've learned a lot, and I want to share it with you all. So I'm going to go over a few do's and don'ts. So let's get into it. Number one. Do not come into medical school with the mindset of, I have to make good grades. I will say what you should do is come into medical school with the mindset that I'm here to digest the information. Because if you are focusing on digesting the information, good grades will come. Okay? I know that sounds like cliche, but seriously, if you add that medical school is already stressful. If you add that added stress of, I have to make good grades, it's really going to stifle your ability to hone in on your study skills that you need to, clearly you need to adapt if your grades are not like where you want them to be. Number two, don't come into medical school trying to memorize everything. Do determine what is high yield and make sure that you understand the basics. So, if you're in medical school, clearly you're smart, right? You have the ability to understand. You have the ability to memorize. You have the capacity to do it. So what I will say is don't get into the habit of taking shortcuts and just trying to memorize everything, because one, the sheer volume that you're getting in medical school is not going to work unless you have a photographic memory, which I know some people do. But also, two, you're going to miss out on what's actually high yield, things that you really do need to understand, because once you get to your second year, you build on things, right? Also, you have a really big exam that you take at the end. I don't know if you know what that is, but your boards, which will basically test you on everything you've ever learned. And if you just memorized everything, that means you have to memorize everything. And memorizing everything, that's how you get things mixed up, jumbled up. So really focus on honing in on your study system, which goes into my third do. Do develop a study system. And I call it a system because there's multiple moving parts in your ability to learn and retain information. So I did want to, because I'm looking at my phone right now, I did want to kind of give an example of my study system. So I do my first year. So let's talk about first year versus second year. So first year, I always pre-read. I used Scholar RX and read their little bricks. Skimmed them, didn't do too much in-depth reading. It wouldn't take more than 5 to 10 minutes. And then they have little questions at the end of their bricks. And sometimes I would just watch an osmosis video to kind of get me prepared for whatever I was going to learn in class. It also helped me to prime my brain on, okay, if I don't understand what this is talking about, just basic, they're drawing something, when I'm in class, I need to focus and pay attention during that time. So I pre-read before every class, went to all my lectures, definitely changed my second year, went to all my lectures, and then when I would leave, I would outline it, and I outlined my lectures in a Word document, and then I would condense that condense that Word document into a morning to review. And the morning to review would be the highest yield stuff that I was still struggling with after, doing all my passes, outlining it, whatever the case may be. And then morning to review is literally what it means. Right before a test, I review my morning to review and then go take my test. I would do a whole bunch of practice questions, and then what I would do was literally track every question. So I would take the question that I missed, put it in like an Excel, write out the answer choices, write out why my answer choice was wrong, write out why the answer choice was right. It was insane. It was too much. Would not recommend. I also used the past tracker, which I still do. And anytime that I pre-read or had to do some more research after, in my past tracker, I had that, outlined, like what I used to pre-read, what I used to put, post, I called it post read. And that way I could track everything that I was using, so I could see which resources really worked for me, so that I could use that, for board studying. Y'all should see it now. Doesn't look like that. Second year, kind of revamped it, kept it kind of the same. I don't pre-read anymore because, one, I don't need to. Second year so my first year was all normal, and then second year is abnormal. So because I did all that extra stuff my first year, second year really didn't need to pre-read because I kind of already knew the stuff. We were just learning, new pathologies, which I can learn in class. Two, I don't always go to lecture. I remember there was she's now a PGY1. Well, she will be going into her first year at residency. She's an M4 technically now. She said to me, if I could not leave your class and take a quiz, I'm not going to your lecture. And so once I got to my second year, kind of was feeling that, because you don't have the time to waste just going to a lecture and you just like, bro, I can't understand anything they're saying. So there are some lectures that I don't go to, and there's definitely lectures I do go to. If I can leave your class and take a quiz, and I'm sure that I can get a 90 or higher just by sitting in that one class, I'm going to your lecture. And so that's kind of what the way I gauged it. I do not do my outlines in a Word document anymore. I do it in PowerPoint. And the reason why I do it in PowerPoint is because I found that as the year went on, my outlines became like a whole book. It was like, just as you're not actually outlining it. But when you have a slide, you put the topic at the top of the slide, and then you write out the stuff. When you use a slide, you really, like, if that font starts to get too small, you're like, I have too much information. So I do utilize slides. Never been an Anki fan, never will be. But I do utilize PowerPoint to make like flashcards. And so when I do practice questions, I no longer take the question, do all that crazy stuff I was doing. What I do is whatever the answer I chose for that specific question, and whatever the answer, like the correct answer was, what makes those two different is the gap in my knowledge. And so that is what I use to make my flashcards, which I think has been very helpful, because now I can identify certain gaps in my knowledge. Because like currently in my educational career, it's not that I don't know what a question's asking me anymore, right? It's how do I differentiate between this disease versus this disease, or this enzyme versus this enzyme, or this drug versus that drug. That's where I'm at. And so that's why that's what I make my flashcards, and my flashcards go into PowerPoint. So I just flip through slides all day. That's what I do. That's all I study with is slides. And then, of course, I still use my past tracker. I don't do a lot of pre-reading. I do some post-reading, but honestly, my post-reading is straight first aid. And sometimes if there's some, like, additional stuff that I need for, like, whys in first aid, I can just use up-to-date. It's very helpful. That's just kind of the what I wanted to come up here and say, just the basic do's and don'ts. And then the difference between first and second year is, one, first year, at least for my institution, normal, and then abnormal. First year, spend that time figuring out what you need to do to not only learn but study, what's sustainable. If you need to go out and do self-care, do it. I get massages almost every month because That's just what I need to be able to function. And then second year, you can start adding more things like leaderships, like I said, research, things like that. But really focus your first year on figuring out how you learn, figuring out how you study. And if you have any questions about studying, study habits, how I do my past tracker, how do I outline, just let me know, okay? Bye, y'all.